Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
How are you doing today?
الحمد لله بارك الله فيكما.
Okay, so today we'll be discussing AI, and inshallah we will do a demonstration with ChatGPT shortly. So if anyone wants to join in or has any questions or wants to give their comments, please do so by either going into the live chat or you can join us live in the studio. I will put a link out shortly, inshallah. Again, we will prioritize questions that are to do with the topic, obviously, and then after that, we'll take more general questions, inshallah. So feel free to leave your questions in the chat. Maybe Sheikh Jamili, since you've had some experience with it, maybe you can give a little, give us a little introduction to what we'll be doing today.
Yeah, so Assalamu alaikum, bismillah, alhamdulillah,
السلام.
assalamu ala rasulillah. So it's actually based on something that Islam answers on during the Umrah we had. And there was an idea that came was this new trend that's happening on the internet and across different sectors, the ChatGPT. And obviously it's caused a lot of controversy, especially, for example, in the sector, the line of work I'm in, education, for instance. It's caused a lot of controversy and stirred a lot of emotions and different concepts. So it was an idea that we were just looking at, maybe perhaps looking at it from the Islamic perspective, as people from questions, because that's possibly something, it's at its beginning stages at the moment, but going down further down the line in the future, I wouldn't be surprised as it being used as a source for people to extract answers, perhaps even get their Islamic counsel on many things. So we were just, it's an idea that we thought, let's just have a look at it, explore it, and perhaps look at the views or how we may, at the moment, perceive it, and give some evaluations on it, inshallah, and see where it takes us from there.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh, for that. Yeah. Sheikh Nooru-ddeen, do you want to add anything? Sorry, you're muted, Sheikh.
You're muted,
I
Sayyidi.
apologize. I have seen it. I don't have very much experience, so I can't speak about it in great detail. It seems essentially similar to searching the internet for things. Obviously, it's going to learn and it's going to improve. And it may have some advantages over just searching the internet. However, I think it's important for Muslims to know that these kind of tools are most beneficial for people who are studying the Deen actively, and I would say traditionally, studying through the Islamic texts. For those people, it can be very useful. As I often say, Q&A generally is only really useful and truly useful for those people who have studied, because they've already got the framework. And because they've got the framework, for example, in fiqh, they understand, how rulings work and such things. They understand how the science works, and they might have forgotten something or they need information regarding something very specific. They also know the credible books of their madhab, for example. So, when they search the internet for something and it's quoting from a credible book, they can have some confidence. I'm not saying absolute confidence, but they can have some confidence that they've understood what they're reading correctly and it's from an authentic source. Whereas a person who hasn't studied whatsoever, learning through Q&A, which I understand this is what it is, isn't it? Even if you're learning, even if you're asking a living scholar questions, you're not going to benefit as much, and you're much more liable to misunderstand things because you don't have the framework in your mind. So inshallah, there is khair in these things. I'm not going to negate it absolutely, but it should be used in the right place, in the right context.
Shukran, Shaykhi. Okay, so without further ado, let's introduce our special guest, ChatGPT, inshallah. Okay, let me just add. How do I add this? Oh, here we go. So we've got ChatGPT, as Sheikh Jamili mentioned. It's a language learning model. Actually, it's interesting. It's really good. I find it quite useful. for general things. I think Sheikh Jamili, you mentioned you used it for your work. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've used it in my line of work, and to be honest with you, it's worked wonders. To be honest with you, so it's definitely something not to discredit completely, as Sheikh Noor mentioned, but it definitely has its place. It'd be just interesting for us to see how it works with us here, inshallah, in the Islamic type of view.
Right. As it mentions, obviously, the limitations, quite important to speak about those. You know, it may occasionally generate incorrect information. I have had a little play with it. When it comes to Islamic stuff, it does get stuff wrong, more so than it may generally do. Also, as it says, it might occasionally produce harmful instruction or biased content. And the main thing is that it's also limited knowledge of the world and events before 2021. And as far as I understand, it's not actually linked to the internet for the time being. So, you know, it's not learning from the internet. It's more so learned already what it knows. So, Sheikh Nooru-ddeen or Sheikh Jamili, do you want to ask one of the questions?
Go ahead, Sheikh Jamili. You have more experience on this.
Yeah, so let's go with something we already played with a little bit before. So tell it that you are what was it? You are a Sunni expert scholar. Okay. Provide the obligations of what should we say? Did you want to be
simpler? Something
Hanafi or a Shafi'i or something?
Start with Shafi, Sayyidi, and maybe we'll do the same thing for Hanafi and see if it picks up the difference.
Yeah, okay.
Should we start with something simpler? Maybe like the pillars of Islam rather than going into.
Go ahead. Provide the pillars of Islam, or
maybe with evidence.
With evidence. Sorry, remember, it might give us evidence for every single one. So actually, why not? Let's see.
Well, let's see, inshallah. Okay, so it's just letting us know that it doesn't have any religious affiliations or personal beliefs, but it can give us an overview, apparently.
Okay. So it's giving us the pillars and it's giving us Quran in addition to it, by the looks of it.
Yes, it seems to be quoting from Quranic verses, and they seem to be correct. I mean, they are. I mean, it's giving the 5 pillars right here.
Yeah.
And it has given us Quranic references.
Yeah. Okay. The 5 pillars are considered essential practice for Sunni Muslims to follow in order to uphold their faith and connect with Allah. Okay. So as you can see, I mean, it's clearly aligned all 5, and it's clearly given us a verse from the Quran, which is, mashallah, as you can see, it's a benefit. But what's important was what Sheikh Noor mentioned, and perhaps we'll find out a little bit more, and maybe ask you a few more questions, is knowing what you're looking at, because there's a lot of nuances in Islamic knowledge, and not knowing what you're looking at, like if I'm looking at it or Sheikh Noor's looking at it, another person who studied for a while looking at it will probably understand, okay, it's giving us Quran. Is it because the Quran is the only form of evidence, or is it doing something else? Okay, so Sayyidi, maybe we can ask it a question from here as a follow-up. Perhaps we can ask it now. So he's given us the evidence.
Before we ask you, while you're thinking, Sheikh, someone's wrote a comment which is quite important to point out as well. It's not true AI, it's machine learning. It also has tendency to make up answers just for the sake of giving an answer. We have found that to be the case. At least I have when I asked.
Unfortunately, sometimes that's the case with the people who teach the Deen as well. Unfortunately, they all give an answer just to answer or make it up. So that's a problem, whether it comes from a machine or comes from a person. Unfortunately, it's rife with both.
No.
Yeah, this is true.
Sahih.
Sheikh, have you thought of the next question?
Yeah, so but maybe let's just have a look at how it understands evidence. So maybe we can see, perhaps say, thank you for your answer or something like that, and then just because you have to, with ChatGPT, just for people to know if they're not aware of it, you have to be quite clear with your prompts. So if you don't give it the correct prompts or whatever, it will just give you quite a vague answer. So you have to be quite particular with what you're saying. Again, it's kind of nuanced as well. So great, thank you. And then you just say, now provide your evidence that these are the 5 pillars of Islam. Let's see if it can particularly identify why it said these are the 5. Or is it just going to repeat itself?
Yeah.
Muslim community.
Says the concept of 5 pillars of Islam is widely recognized and accepted by the Muslim community, including Sunni Muslims. The evidence for these pillars is derived primarily from the Quran and teaching. And again, it's just giving us the same thing again, so we can stop generating.
Yeah. As you can see, so you see, it's not. Again, obviously, it's only it's at its infancy, but you can see that. What's interesting is that it says at the top, the concept of the 5 pillars of Islam is widely recognized and accepted by the Muslim community, including Sunni Muslims. The evidence of these pillars is derived primarily from the Quran and the teachings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as well as scholarly interpretation and consensus of the Muslim community over time. So it's interesting how it's identified the 4 from Sunnis. Shaykh Nooru-ddeen is clearly seems to understand Quran, Sunnah, Ijma', and the
Qiyas, stroke ijtihad, because he said interpretation, ijtihad, qiyas. MashaAllah, it's reasonable, MashaAllah.
Yeah. But so as you can see, the benefit from it is quite clear. So, but the point is very important here, Sayyidi Waqas, and I think again going back to what Sheikh Noor said, is you have to look at it with the right eye. So me and Sheikh Noor, for example, are looking at it from the eye of, as you know, we already know the 4 sources of Sunni, law, okay, and how we extrapolate rulings from what are the main sources, primary sources of our religion. Hence, we can accept it. But if someone else looks at this and says, okay, scholarly interpretation, what does that mean?
Yeah, exactly.
What does that mean to somebody? What is a scholar? And I think before we did ask you that question, Sidi Waqas, didn't we? Similar.
Yeah, we did. Should we try it again?
Yeah, repeat that question. The question was, how do you define the consensus of the Muslim community? Ask it to define that. So we understand it to be ijma'. And Sheikh Noor, can you define what ijma' is for us, Sayyidi?
Yeah, ijma' is when you have all, according to some, almost all. We have some ikhtilaf there, but let's keep it simple. When you have all relevant, qualified scholars agreeing upon an issue, and often that means agreeing upon an interpretation found based upon Quran and Sunnah. So essentially, all scholars agree, or all qualified and relevant scholars agree that the answer to this question is this.
Mumtaz. Let's have a look at what it says and compare to what Sheikh Noor said. It's known as ijma'. Okay.
Saying the Islamic tradition, the consensus of the Muslim community is known as ijma'. It refers to the agreement of or consensus reached by Islamic scholars and jurists on a particular matter based on the interpretation of the Quran and Hadith.
Okay, so far it seems okay. Let's see what else it says.
Says ijma' is considered one of the primary sources of Islamic law and is based on the belief that the collective wisdom and understanding of the Muslim community is essential for establishing religious norms and practices. It is often used to determine matters of religious doctrine and practice, such as the interpretation of Islamic law, the validity of religious practices, and the acceptance of certain beliefs or practices within the Muslim community. The process of reaching consensus involves scholarly discussions and debates with scholars and jurists from different schools of Islamic thought coming together to reach a common understanding on a particular matter. The consensus is reached through a process of dialogue and debate and is based on the principle of reasoning, evidence, and interpretation of the primary source of Islamic law.
Okay.
Would you say this is accurate?
It's good. I mean, to be honest, a lot of it's quite waffle afterwards. A lot of it's waffle. But just for people to understand, like when we talk about ijma', why is it so important in our religion? For instance, if we ask you, why do you pray? You will tell us because Allah told us to pray in the Quran. Fine. Now, if I ask you, why do you pray 4 rak'ahs of dhuhr? Why do you pray 4 rak'ahs of asr? Why do you pray 3 rak'ahs of maghrib? Now, you might bring to me some ahadith in Bukhari, but that is part of it. But the original evidence that is we base upon that, the strongest, because evidence is ijma' here. Ijma' meaning that the consensus of the scholars from the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam through particular scholars, not just any scholars, everybody has prayed 4 rak'ahs as Zuhr, 4 rak'ahs as Asr, 3 rak'ahs as Maghrib, 4 rak'ahs as Isha, and 2 rak'ahs as Fajr. Nobody's done differently. Okay? And that's why ijma' is an extremely important source of evidence for us as Muslims. Now here it obviously it's gone into the details, but again it's not as the rest of it is waffle that is there. But again, it has its benefits. I mean, personally, I would see it, as Sheikh Noor mentioned before, personally I can see its benefit for myself, in the sense that if I'm looking for something, if I'm looking for maybe let's see if when it does find its way into Arabic, which no doubt it will, perhaps for looking for something that I've not found in the books or something, perhaps there may be something out there I need to look. Perhaps I want to look at the various fatwa people have given out nowadays. Maybe it can help me do that. But in terms of to completely have a reliance, now I don't deny that maybe in the future, Allahu a'lam, something might be created out there that might be quite nuanced. But I cannot imagine, say, Sheikh Noor, I don't know how you feel, but I cannot imagine something to be done that can be so nuanced to replace an Islamic scholar, yani in terms of fatwa.
Yeah.
Sorry, can I just before you answer, I think we can tie in with a question a brother's asked. He asked, certain AI projects like robots to try replicate how humans think, behave, and interact. Is it permissible to work on these projects, since it's essentially trying to create an artificial human? You can tie that in as well.
Okay. So firstly, again, just to emphasize, this is, this kind of thing is supplementary. This cannot replace actual learning. It can be useful, inshallah ta'ala. For example, here, the kind of things we've been searching here, if you've studied fiqh and usul al-fiqh, this can be a useful reminder. Oh, you remember you studied ijma', and then, you've forgotten exactly what it is, and then you look at this and it reminds you, but it cannot be your source of knowledge. And you cannot, it doesn't replace the classical books. So firstly, that's okay. Secondly, no doubt in the current form, there's no way this can replace a person who is qualified to give fatwa, because this is just relaying. And somebody who's giving fatwa has to look very specifically at the circumstances, the nuances around the circumstances, the nuanced text that we have to look at in order to give fatwa and such things. So certainly at this stage, we never know what's going to happen in the future, but the only way it can replace or even attempt to replace or sit in place of a scholar is if it's providing a dars, a lesson, not Q&A. So, neither should people use Google nor anything like this as a replacement for classical learning. And even then, obviously, we'd have to look at how it performs, etc. Now, but this is very, very important. People need to understand, it's not correct to rubbish these things altogether and say, no, this is all rubbish and there's no benefit in it whatsoever. There's khayr in it, inshallah. And it's going to be far more beneficial for the scholar than the layperson. As Sheikh Muhammad mentioned, you have something in your mind, especially once you have Arabic here as well. You have something in your mind and you're trying to search for it. This may help you find it, inshallah ta'ala. They had books of hadith like this, where you had ataraf. Okay, you had a portion of a hadith, and there were books that you go and you look at the portion and it tells you where the rest of the hadith is. It has benefit, inshallah ta'ala, but it certainly won't in its current form, replace a scholar who is teaching. Now, as for these kind of projects, we have to look at the benefit and the harm of the specific project that one is involved in, inshallah. And again, to be too blanket about this is wrong and harmful. The Muslim Ummah historically has been interested in developments and technological developments, etc., be it in any aspect of life. So we don't rubbish these things outright, but yes, at the same time, we are not like kuffar that anything goes. There are a lot of important questions that come along with the technological advancement, and each project has to be looked at on its own merits. There shouldn't be a blanket fatwa that, it's learning, it's trying to mimic, therefore it's just haram, full stop. That's incorrect.
Sheikh Jamili, maybe you can...
Yeah, no, it's to be honest, it's exactly, these things are in the early days, and as our scholars, classical scholars have always done, when things that arise that are kind of new. I mean, I don't think this is new. This is I think it's just presented itself in a different form to what we perhaps already have, like Google and so on and so forth. But again, it's just presented itself differently. But again, everything should be looked at. There's nothing here that I can see on this blanket statement to say haram. Um, and therefore we can't. And there are obviously aspects that may be problematic, and there may be aspects to it that are not that problematic. So, as Sheikh Noor said, everything needs to be looked at carefully, and only through time. As that's what I was trying to say at the beginning, is that our classical scholars, before I went off, but our classicals have always, when things like this have happened, you have to give time, and only things will become more apparent as time goes on, and then then things can be understood better, and the rulings can be understood better, what to exactly give. There was once upon a time where coffee was considered haram by some scholars, and then that changed, and so on and so forth. Even football, soccer, as the Americans will call it. I've even seen fatwa early on, okay, where soccer or football was considered to be haram, okay, because at that time it was considered as imitating the non-believers, you see, and then that changed within its time. And but again, not everything changes. There are only certain things that change, that have certain rulings that can be changed. And this is something important I want to mention, a little bit off a tangent, but it's important because I think it's related to what I was saying now. Many people, contemporaries, will always say that rulings change with time. True, but it's a statement that's been said in its wrong place. Okay, there's a time and place where certain rules, yes, can change, but not everything can change. There's certain things with time, as they pass, will not change. A perfect example that I've read in one of our classical scholars, and Sheikh Noor, it'd be good for you to hear a bit about this one as well, is if a common thing that we have is that for witnesses to certain cases, you need to have either 2 males or 4 females. Okay, 2 males or 4 females to act as a testimony to certain matters. Okay, one of the scholars, they said, okay, what if you have Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra radiyallahu anha, meaning if you have Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra as your only witness to give testimony, can we take her testimony only because it's Fatima Zahra? Can we take her testimony only or not? Or do I still need 3 other women to follow up with Sayyidah Fatima Zahra's statement? So the scholar said clearly that no, you still need another 3 women, because those rules do not change with time, even if it is the great Sayyidah Fatima Zahra. So there's certain principles and points that do not change. And why is this related to this? Is because it's very, very important for Muslims to understand their religion properly, from the proper sources, through the traditional way of learning, through classical scholarship, and then you'll know how to interact with these things correctly. I remember one of the classical scholars says, very important, he said that you can't just tell the child, oh, driving is good, so therefore everyone get in the car and start driving. It's going to be a disaster. It's going to cause a catastrophe, you see. But if you can get people to have the right tools and understand how it works, know the dangers, know the hazards, and so on and so forth, then you'll be able to drive carefully. I will compare it to UK driving compared to Saudi Arabia driving. If you've ever been to Saudi Arabia, you'll know every day you're in the car as if you need to say your shahada before you pass away. Okay, but if you're driving in the UK, why? Because people have had to learn again, I don't want to be stereotypical, but hazards, knowing how to, there's a protocol, a process. In Saudi Arabia, there hasn't been that protocol and process, or it hasn't been enforced as much, I would say. You see, and the same thing goes with religion. Sorry, I went off a tangent, but I think that was very, very related to what we're talking about. Sorry, Shaykh.
I just want to put up a comment which is related as well, and this is true. A brother pointed out, or sister, I'm not sure, that ChatGPT can produce a peer-reviewed paper complete with academic sources, name, etc., and it's found to be completely made up. So we should worry when AI start inserting sources online as reputable. And as you saw earlier, it will just say things, and the brother commented earlier, it'll just make up things for the sake of making up things. So we do need to be careful at the time being.
I'm going to comment on that, but just to touch upon what Sheikh Muhammad just spoke of. Yeah, absolutely. This is what people need to be aware of this. Islam is not like other religions where everything seems to change with culture. Everything seems to change with time. Okay, they say this is not allowed. Suddenly culture changes and now it's allowed. Islam doesn't work like that. Okay, you have those rulings which are just firmly established. They're clearly mentioned in the Quran, clearly mentioned in the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Doesn't matter what happens in the with cultural norms, they're not going to change. And there are others, and you mentioned a good example, Sadie, where it's related to imitating the disbelievers, for example. Okay, that can change because something might be considered unique to a particular group of disbelievers for a particular period of time, and then it changes later on. Now, certainly in the Hanafi school, we're very strict on it when it's related to religious issues, but the example you gave is good, that soccer, football, okay? That's not a religious issue. So if at a particular point it's very, very unique to a particular group of kuffar, then there might be some concern. Later on it's not, there's no concern, inshallah ta'ala. Now, and yes, to answer or to comment on this point here, this is why in Islam, we've always had this idea of what we call tahqiq. Okay, that you chase things up, you follow things up. You don't just simply see, oh, he's referenced it, that's enough. Okay, so I don't currently use this the particular program that we're speaking of today. But if I were to, personally, even when he references a verse of Quran, I'm going to go back to it. I'm going to go back to it for two reasons. First of all, I'm going to go and see that, okay, he's said that this is in Surah Baqarah, verse number 171. I'm going to check if it's the case. And secondly, since this is in English, I'm going to check whether the translation is accurate or not. Now, so this is very, very important. This is part of our tradition as Muslims. You're supposed to engage in tahqiq, verification. Don't just take it. Oh, Google said it, or this program said it, therefore it must be fact. We're not allowed to do that. We didn't do that as a body of Muslims or Muslim scholars. We didn't do that with fellow scholars. We didn't say he said it, it must be right. No, okay. He said he conveyed something and referenced it to such and such. Then we're going to go and check if it's actually the case. And last point I want to make, this is one of the reasons Imam Ibn Abidin, rahimahullah ta'ala, is so highly regarded, even though he's really quite a late scholar in the Hanafi madhab. He's so highly regarded because he done that. He said in his introduction that whenever I find somebody referencing something, I'm going to go back and check it. And very often in his book, he said, I went back, I checked it. It wasn't quite like this. It was like this. I'll say, I didn't find it. I'll say, no, it was misrepresented. So, mashallah, tahqiq is important, especially when it comes to religious matters. This is, the most important aspect of our life. We must always engage in tahqiq. And nowadays, it's even more important because many people have social media, they're spreading everything. Okay, this fatwa, this hadith. And there's such a lack of care when it comes to hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. No concern with verification, hadith, yallah. Now, sometimes even verses of Quran. It's rare that you find that people have misreferenced, I suppose you could say, but mistranslation is not that uncommon when it comes to the Holy Quran. So it's good to get into the routine of checking things, especially in our time and situation.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Can we ask it something else though? Should we should we have some fun with it? Maybe ask it something from the Shafi'i or the Hanafi madhab?
From the Shafi'i school. Maybe do we have any questions here?
Let's see.
And then maybe we can.
Oh, here we go. It says, "Is chess allowed in the Shafi'i madhab?" Is one of the questions.
Now, before you ask the question, make sure that this is not our response to the question. Okay, so whoever question, please be aware that that's not our response. It's just we just want to see what it does.
Khair, let's see how it handles this one. Is chess allowed in?
And that's actually interesting because I just saw this question and I was just thinking of the dalil, and I just thought let me just see if I guess I can't remember if there's a particular dalil. Be interesting if it brings it up.
Hey, let's see. Shaykh is saying that it's been a topic of debate. Apparently, some scholars have considered permissible, others have considered prohibited. And is that correct to start off with?
Okay, wait, hang on a second. Let me just finish because I'm already seeing some things here. It looks like it's waffling.
Does seem. I mean, okay, shall we?
Okay. Let's just have a look. So the permissibility of chess at the top, Saidi.
It said has been a topic of debate among Islamic scholars for many centuries. Some scholars have considered permissible, while others consider prohibited.
Okay, so yeah, so from that paragraph, yeah, absolutely, there is a difference of opinion. It's not something that's completely agreed upon within the Shafi'i school. Okay, carry on.
In the Shafi'i madhab, there are different opinions regarding the permissibility of chess. Oh, sorry, have I said that one? No, I haven't.
No.
Some scholars have considered permissible as long as it's played in moderation and without any gambling involved. They argue that there's no clear evidence in the Quran or Sunnah that explicitly prohibits playing chess. Other
Okay.
schools,
No,
however,
sorry, Saidi.
Go on.
So yeah. So in answer to that question, firstly, is that yes, in the Shafi'i school, it is permitted to play chess. Okay. Again, the reasoning that is mentioned here, moderation. Not really. I'll explain later why, inshallah. Obviously, if there's no gambling, then that's with anything. It's not just chess, it's with anything, okay? Even if you ride your bicycle, but there's gambling, then it's haram. They're not riding the bicycle, just the gambling in and of its own, okay? But it's saying that they argued that there's no evidence. No, that's nonsense. Okay, we have a principle in fiqh where we say at-tarku la ya'ni at-tahrim. Okay, just because something is not there, okay, doesn't mean it's haram. Okay, now which is what it's trying to say, but it's not exactly what the point is. Anyway, carry on. Other scholars, however,
have considered it prohibited based on the principle of blocking the means of evil, which means avoiding any activity that may lead to harm or sin. They argue that playing chess can lead to gambling and addiction, which are prohibited in Islam. Is that correct?
No, sadd al-dhara'i is a principle we don't really use in the Shafi'i school. Okay.
Okay.
This is a principle that's mainly used within the Hanbali and Maliki school, maybe. Okay, but in the Shafi'i school, sadd al-dhara'i it's used in very limited cases. Sadd al-dhara'i means like blocking means to evil. We do have it as a sense of assisting in evil. Assisting in haram is haram, but to completely block something that may be halal from its beginning doesn't mean it's haram from the beginning. It might be haram at that point, you see. So for example, building a building, that there's a possibility a bank might hire, doesn't mean it's haram to build that building. No. Okay, but someone might say to us, oh, but if we build buildings, then this building, there's a high possibility that the bank will hire this building and rent it out, sadd al-dhara'i, because they have other principles, whatever. Then we as a Shafi'i, we can't ban the building itself. We can't ban that. But maybe other madhahib possibly could. Okay, depending on the context. I'm not saying that they will, but depending on context, I don't know. They possibly could. But we don't have that principle. So AI is talking waffles.
Yeah, I think someone just suggested that we can actually prompt it to keep it. It said you can use a prompt such as keep it concise or answer in 3 lines and stop waffling. Still does though. So maybe on the next one we'll try to get it to waffle less. But it looks like, look, in this waffle, it's kind of gone on to Ibn
Taymiyyah. What has that got to do with the Shafi'i school?
This is what I mean. I think it's just at the moment, I think it's just jumbling everything into one.
Yeah. So I think just to wait, hang on. Look at the last sentence.
Last sentence. It is important to consult with a qualified Islamic scholar for a more detailed and nuanced understanding of the issue. Khair, at least it's giving you the right advice at the end.
Excellent. So basically, he said, "I don't know."
Basically, it's like, here's everything I could find in my learning model.
But again, I cannot negate, mashallah, yani, in terms of it has potential. You see, it has some great potential in that. You know, it has some good potential, and it's enjoyable seeing that. But again, I don't think it'll ever get to that. As then we've had a comment now that it can never replace a righteous alim who is loved by Allah Azza wa Jalla. Yeah, I absolutely agree. You know, that can never happen. But in terms of that question, is chess halal in the Shafi'i school? Yes, chess is permitted in the Shafi'i school, as long as it doesn't affect any obligations of your religion. Meaning, if it's gonna put you off your salah and you're gonna delay prayer, then that's obviously not allowed. If you have other obligations you need to tend to, whether it's your family or anything that's an obligation in your religion, and chess is a thing on the side, then you cannot play it because of that reason. Or if you're playing it with somebody who considers it haram, right? You cannot do it because that will be considered as assisting that person in haram. So we have a common thing that we have in the Shafi'i school, that if you play with a Hanafi doesn't, if you correct me, Sheikh, is it allowed in the Hanafi school, chess?
No, Sayyidi, it's not allowed.
So I can't play with Sheikh Noor because I'll be considered as assisting Sheikh Noor in haram. Okay, but so that's the first thing. The dalil in the Shafi'i school for that is based upon the issue of it being related to war. Okay, it's assisting in something that is considered, it's a tool to something that the religion considers as a high virtue of the religion, which is war in the right cause, like war for the right cause, or you'd consider as jihad. So why? Because chess is a very strategical game. Okay, it requires a lot of strategy, and this relates to all games in the Shafi'i school. Okay, as long as something is a strategy-based game and it doesn't include the dice or the cards, okay, these type of things, then that, because the dice is not allowed. Any game, even if it's so-called strategy but it has a dice, not allowed. Okay, and obviously it doesn't have anything else haram in it, but it's strategy-based, then the Sharia looks at it in a high way, in highlight. So because it assists in something that is a bigger cause. Okay.
Shaykh, let's just do one more for the Shafi'i and then we'll move on to Hanafi, because I think it might be able to answer somewhat well. Maybe, I don't know, I'm guessing. Someone's asking, what are the main books? So let's see.
Okay, make sure you ask it to be concise, like Saidi. Or answer it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. What are the main books?
Ask it to list no more than.
You're right.
Wait, ask it to list no more than
Let's just
7.
Say 5 or 7.
Five,
okay.
7. Let's list 7. Again, we're not endorsing that people should ask questions like we are doing, okay? But
yeah, just to clarify, we do have a Shaykh sitting with us, so that's why I'm asking these questions. I wouldn't just ask it and rely upon it. So here we can clarify if these books are correct, are relied upon or not. So Shaykh is the first one relied upon.
Risalat al-Jami'ah, yes. What? Okay, yeah, Risalat al-Jami'ah is a very good starting book. I absolutely agree. So Risalat al-Jami'ah is a very, very good book, a very small book that one can start with. Umdat al-Salik is a intermediate moving to advanced. Okay, so it's, I would say, a high intermediate book. Umdat al-Salik, Reliance of the Traveler, is a very well-known book. Okay, that's also a very important book. Muwatta is a book of hadith. It's for fiqh as well, but it's not usually used in the Shafi'i curriculum. Al-Muhalla of Ibn Hazm. Okay, I don't know.
Sorry, who wrote Umdat al-Salik?
Umdat al-Salik, Ibn Naqib al-Misri.
Oh, so saying right by Imam al-Nawawi.
Oh.
Yes, this is what I mean. I think it just mumble jumble kind of everything into one.
Okay, Al-Muhalla of Ibn Hazm, absolutely not. Al-Ashbah wal-Nadha'ir of who? Of Imam al-Rafi'i.
Allegedly.
Ashbah wal-Nadha'ir, Imam al-Rafi'i wal-Ashbah al-Nadha'ir?
I find with the Hanafi books, it was mixing them up.
Al-Mabsut, the great book of Imam Al-Mabsut. There's a few books that again. Sorry?
Mabsut is a Hanafi book, isn't it? I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay. Because we have Al-Mabsut, but basically, this is the wrong answer. Absolutely wrong answer. Okay.
Ahya al-Madin, I guess that's.
But it's not used for. But yeah, okay.
So maybe you could give a real answer this time.
Inshallah. So main books in the Shafi'i school that can be relied or can be studied to learn from. So here there's a key issue here that the question's asking about to learn from. I don't think there's any single book in the Shafi'i madhab that you can sit and learn from directly because each book has nuances, okay? And each book has been written for different purposes. And if you're not familiar with the nuance of what the scholar is saying, you won't really get you'll get something, but you won't get the real benefit and reap the benefit from that book. So one of the classic ones I see is Imam an-Nawawi's Minhaj al-Talibin, which is one of the, I would say, if you call it the black belt in fiqh and Shafi'i fiqh, that's the black belt in fiqh, Shafi'i fiqh, okay? Once you study Minhaj al-Talibin, you are more or less an advanced student that is ready to perhaps delve further into fatwa and so on and so forth. But for example, that book, I can teach that to intermediates as well. But will they get the benefit from that book? That is expected, no. Because that book has a lot of nuances and a lot of terminology, and the way Imam Nawawi has written something, has written it in a particular way. He's used a particular word, even a particular letter, for a particular purpose, to highlight, for example, that there is a particular difference of opinion here, or here he's said, for example, and also, he will say and also, but that also is giving us an indication that there's a difference of opinion that I need to be aware of, okay, and so on and so forth. So simple answer, you can't just learn from any book on its own. You will need to study with somebody, okay, who is very well versed in the Shafi'i school. Main books in the Shafi'i madhab, as a beginner, Risalat al-Jami'ah has been mentioned here. Secondly, I would advise after Risalat al-Jami'ah to go to Safinat al-Najah, okay, the text called Safinat al-Najah. After Safinat al-Najah, I would recommend someone to go to Muqaddimah al-Hadramiyah. After Muqaddimah al-Hadramiyah, to go to Matn Abi Shuja'. After Matn Abi Shuja', to perhaps read a commentary of Matn Abi Shuja', maybe Al-Iqna' of Imam al-Shirbini, to become a little bit more accustomed and open to the different books, different ways the scholars speak. After that, to go to Umdat al-Salik, okay, of Ibn Naqib. After Umdat al-Salik, to go to Fath al-Mu'in, okay, and after Fath al-Mu'in, to go to Minhaj al-Talibin, or some of the ulama, they say Manhaj al-Tullab of Shaykh al-Islam Zakaria al-Ansari, which is a shorter version of Minhaj. And after Minhaj, then usually those are usually the 8 that I would personally ask a student to go through in the process, in order to become if you miss any of them out, you'll be missing something in your process of becoming a scholar in the madhab, or very well versed in the madhab, I would say, because each of them books has a very particular important place for it to play. Now,
Shaykh Nooru-ddeen, maybe you want to ask something from the Hanafi school?
Regarding books or something else?
Anything you want, Shaykh. Someone actually
We'll try
suggested
the same one.
you can actually. Someone said you can also use books. It can find its information from, so it's more accurate, like the Hanafi madhab, Muqtasad al-Quduri, or you can say, for example, find this information from these books,
let's ask it. It's a bit technical, but let's ask it. What are the 6 books of Zahir?
I might not spell it right, so it might not get it.
One more H before the I, Sayyidi. Zahir Riwaya. Get our Zahir Riwaya.
If it will.
Yeah, I just want to comment on the previous one, though. It's really mixed it up.
Maybe I should have.
Okay. With the Shafi books, it's got books there that are not part of the Shafi madhab. It's got the wrong authors. It's a mess.
Khair, I think it's got the first 2 correct so far.
No, so the books of Zahir or Riwaya, these are 6 books from the Hanafi madhab. He's listing out the books of Hadith, the 6
maybe
books.
Maybe I should.
Maybe specify Hanafi madhab, but although these are not books of Zahir Riwaya anyway. These are called al-Kutub al-Sitta. These are called the 6 books, not the 6 books of Zahir Riwaya.
Okay.
6 books of Zahir Riwaya, maybe in the Hanafi madhab.
Yeah, maybe it won't be so well versed on the terminology, Shaykh. But let me try. What are the 6 books that are in the?
We could ask it a simpler question afterwards if you like. You know, something our audience.
Yeah, it seems to think that it's to do with hadith, Shaykh. So
yeah, it's completely wrong. Let's ask it just a standard question. What are the obligatory elements of wudu in the Hanafi madhab? Yeah, it's failed miserably on the last two.
Oh, sugar. I should have asked it to be concise. Okay. Okay. Washing the face, washing the arm, quarter of the head, washing the feet. Ah, okay. MashaAllah.
Oh, this is an improvement. It didn't get it wrong.
Yeah, I think I tried it because I told you I tried it a couple of weeks ago, and it actually gave me 6 or something. And this time it's only given 4.
Yes, so this is a good example of it learning, because last time it was 6 or 7.
Yeah, last time it gave 6 or 7, Shaykh, and look, it's learned, and and we told it was wrong, and this time it looks like it's given the right answer. Washing the face once, washing the arms up to elbow once, wiping the quarter of the head once, and washing the feet to the ankle once, which is correct as far as I understand. Correct me wrong.
And then bringing the hands back to the front of the head. I mean, there's some of the details are not quite accurate because we're asking for the fard covering the area equivalent to a quarter of the head. Washing the feet up to the ankles. Be better to say including the ankles. Well, this includes washing.
It does. It says
foot.
including the ankle.
Yeah, it's okay. It's just a little bit inaccurate with number 3, but this is a good example of it learning.
Yes, definitely.
Because it was wrong last time.
Yeah. Does it say tartib in there?
Tartib is not obligatory in the Hanafi madhab. Tartib, for those who are not familiar, is to establish the order.
Yeah, but does it mention that in here? Because someone's saying it's not a condition in the madhab. Has it mentioned it is a condition?
Let's have a look.
It's obligatory. All these actions. Oh yeah, it does. Shaykh over here.
Okay, all these actions must be performed in order and without interruption. No, that's wrong.
This is wrong.
Yeah.
Well spotted. Well spotted, brother. Yeah. No, yes, good he pointed that out, or she.
Such that no part of the limb is left right. Additionally, the water used for wudu must be pure, and the intention to perform wudu must be present. No, another mistake. Intention.
Yeah. So I mean, it got the elements right, but then it started waffling, and it just made up.
If it didn't waffle, if it left that last paragraph out, it would have been okay.
Yeah. I think we were just fixed on what the elements are. We didn't read the bottom bit.
We were very excited that it learned because last time it was wrong.
Yeah, I'm really impressed as well because last time it actually gave like 8 or 7 or something.
Wow.
Wow. Okay. But this is the thing about machine learning, right? And improving and stuff. You'll just keep learning and learning. Anything else you want to ask, Shaykh?
Okay, Hanafi, does vomiting nullify your fast?
Does in the
specify Hanafi, I think, although yeah.
Keep it concise. Maybe this way we can. This way we can keep it from waffling and shooting itself in the foot. It's saying yes. Vomiting intentionally or unintentionally breaks the fast in the Hanafi madhab.
No, it does not. Wrong. Maybe tell it it's wrong. Induced vomiting nullifies the fast.
Now it's saying that if you do it intentionally, it does.
Okay.
So I guess induced vomiting, right?
Yeah, induced vomiting, yeah. Induced vomiting nullifies your fast.
Okay, so I guess technically it's right now.
Yeah, I would use induced instead of intentionally, but I suppose it's more or less the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah. So maybe later on, in a couple of weeks, it might give the right answer now. Who knows?
I think what it's doing, Sadie, I think here it's suggesting an answer and it's waiting for you to respond to it. I think that's what it's doing. So now it's probably said vomiting intentionally does break the fast, but vomiting unintentionally doesn't. Oh, yeah, other way around. So yeah, so I think it's waiting for you to respond. So Allahu Alam.
Right. Let's hope it. Say yes. Induced vomiting does nullify the fast.
Right, yes, Sayyidi Waqas. Yes,
Okay, yeah.
at the beginning.
All right.
Until someone else comes and makes something else up.
Okay, there we go. It's thanked us for correcting it, and he's apologized for any confusion it might have caused. So I mean, look, it does have benefit. I mean, we can go on, and if someone else wants to, they can obviously access it themselves. Again, just to put the disclaimer out there, you should not rely upon it. As you can see, it makes a lot of mistakes. So keep that in mind when you're testing it. But it does have its benefits as well. Unless there's something else you guys want to talk about on this, I think there's a few questions because we're coming up to the end. I want to tackle. So unless either of you want to test it more, or are we done with it?
I'm done with it, Sadie. No.
Well, okay,
I
inshallah.
think we've seen its benefits and its harms, and we've seen how it learns as well. MashaAllah, I think it's been useful.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, well, with that said, I think we're obviously wrapping up now. So let's just we'll stop taking questions. Some of the questions that have come in, let's try to address those, and then we can close off, inshallah. One of the questions was, what is the ruling on shredding papers, etc., with religious words or names, and thereafter placing them in a recycling bin? Kindly please provide details, as this is important.
Sadie Muhammad?
Also, can it be done with one's hands, or is it machinery a must, i.e. a shredding machine? Or can you rip it up?
So in the Shafi'i madhab, religious words need to be very specific in what that particularly means. Okay, with Quran and anything that is considered to be so Quran, name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this in particular, especially with Quran in the Shafi'i school, the way you let me pick my word carefully here of adab, but the way you if there's a Quran that is not being used, for instance, it's an old copy or people aren't using it, then originally the way to deal with it is that you'd put it in with water, and then you would remove it. So usually people either you put it into the rivers, seas, waters, whatever. But if that's not the case, and there's no one's using it, and it may be thrown, or someone might do something with it or whatever, basically no one's going to use it, and they might throw it away, like into a bin, because they can't find any other way of doing it. Then out of protection of the sanctity of the Holy Quran, then in the madhab, the Shafi'i madhab has allowed it to be burned, to burn the paper, to burn the paper as a form of recycle, as that form. So shredding, no, but burning paper, yes, but with the intention of preserving the sanctity of the Quran. That's the only way we would allow it in that situation. As for religious words, names, so religious words, like I said, the Quran, names, I'm are they referring to things like I hear with the name of the Prophet ﷺ or something like this?
Maybe Abdul Rahman, the part that says Rahman, possibly.
Abdul Rahman. So in our madhab, for example, it's been mentioned that not everything that has the name refers to that particular person. Okay, so for example, just because my name is Muhammad is not referring to Sayyiduna Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if I have a t-shirt that has my name, Muhammad Jamili, on it, and I go into the bathroom, have I committed an act of karaha in the Shafi'i school? No, because that Muhammad Jamili is referring to me, not referring to Sayyiduna Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is a very important point. But if you have something that is referring to Sayyiduna Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam clearly, then for example, entering the bathroom will be makruh at that point in time. All right. As for using it I haven't seen anything particularly problematic about recycling when it comes to that. But again, if it's out of respect and sanctity, it'd be better to always use water, or if it's to protect the sanctity of the name, it's referring to Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then to burn the paper to protect the name, to protect the sanctity. Yes, if you cannot use water. But shredding and things, no. Muslim names. So yeah, it goes back to Muslim names. So Muslim names, as I've just mentioned, Muslim names, if it's referring to a particular character, a sanctified character, then as I've just mentioned, if it's not referring to a sanctified character, then no, it's no issue. Wallahu a'lam.
I think they're just keeping it very generic, just saying Muslim names, translated names, or words like halal. So nothing like, I don't think they're talking about Quran here. It's just
yeah. So as I said, if it has a name referring to a particular sanctified person, okay, in the religion, then it will be better out of adab to follow that way. But is it halal or haram? Yani with names, I'm not sure. With Quran, absolutely, I'm sure. But with names, I do not remember something being mentioned about that. Allahu alam. Sayyidi Shaykh Noor.
Okay, and first of all, the machinery thing, there's no issue. You have to use machinery or anything like that. Secondly, normally, yes, if you shred it such that it's letter by letter, thereafter you could. If you shred it that finely, that it's letter by letter, each letter is separate from the next, you could put that into recycling. However, I would make an exception for Arabic. First of all, if it's the Holy Quran, we're going to just treat it completely different to everything else. And in the Hanafi madhab, the first part is the same. They said put it in water and the ink will dissolve. That's not the case nowadays. It simply doesn't happen, so that's not applicable. And the other option they mentioned is to bury it. This is in the Hanafi madhab. However, if somebody was to take the opinion of the Shafi'i madhab and to burn with the intention of respecting the sanctity and such things, then alhamdulillah khair, inshallah ta'ala, one could do that. Now, so Ibn Abidin did mention something. He felt, especially with the Arabic language, he felt that even the letter is to be respected. Every individual letter is to be respected. So my advice would be the following, that if it's Arabic, it's best to go with one of the other options, which is bury put in water is no longer an option. Bury or burn, according to Shafi'i madhab. And if it's another language, then shred it finely and you can put it in recycling. Khair, inshallah. But if you were to take the other option of burying or burning for everything, khair, Allah most high reward you.
Shukran. Okay, I think there's just one more question or maybe two. Let's see where it's gone.
Things in the question do not refer to religious books or materials.
So let's just move on to the next question, which is, what is the ruling on rebelling against an oppressive leader not ruling by the Sharia and Dar al-Islam? Maybe Shaykh Nooru-ddeen, you can start on this one and then we'll go to the Shafi'i.
It's rebelling, meaning to take up arms against him. As long as he's Muslim, this is not permissible. You cannot take up arms against him. Raise your voice, of course. Provide nasiha advice, of course. Okay, use the apparatus available within the political system to guide towards that which is more correct, of course. To educate the masses and move public opinion in the right direction, of course. Do all of those things, but you cannot take up arms. No, as long as he's Muslim.
Is that the same in the Shafi'i madhab, I take it?
Yeah, absolutely the same, Sayyidi. Nothing else to add on to that, inshallah.
Khair. Okay, last question we had was, where's it gone? Sheikh Jamili, you can start on this one. Is it sin to attend a Shia funeral?
It depends on the individual. If the person is considered, no, it's not a sin. But if somebody is a person, role model, okay, or someone who's looked up within the community, such as a scholar, okay, and so on and so forth, then it's not recommended for that person to go to them, okay, because that's considered it can be seen as iqrar al-ma'siyah, okay, to their beliefs. It can be considered iqrar al-ma'siyah means affirming their ways, and they are considered to be people of bid'ah. So therefore, it would for that type of person would not be allowed. Okay, but for it's not that. And if it's considered as iqrar ma'siyah, then it wouldn't be allowed. But if it's not considered, then it'd be better for that person not to go. Okay, because he's considered to be a person of the community. As for general people, again, in that case, to attend the funeral of the Shia, if there's nothing haram taking place, okay, or anything considered to be part of their bid'ah, then it would not be an issue. But it could be. But if there is something taking place to be part of their different to, for example, the original ways, or part of their way that is different to the Sunni way of doing things, then it be recommended not to go, because it could be considered as iqrar ala al-ma'siyah, on their bid'ah, as considered to be what's the word I'm looking for, affirming their a deviant way, if there's a deviant way taking place. No.
Shaykh Nooru-ddeen?
Yes. So first thing to say is that the general fatwa regarding the Shia are Muslims. For should we hear sometimes nowadays people saying Shia Kufar as a blanket statement. This is wrong, and it's sectarian, and it causes a lot of problems. The Hanafis, as a general rule, they said it's valid but makruh tahrimi to pray behind Shia, because as Sheikh Muhammad said, they are Ahlul Bid'ah, they are outside of Ahlul Sunnah. That in our madhab, it's actually sinful to pray behind them. Obviously, you also have to consider that, is their tajweed sound, is their fiqh valid? You have to look at that as well. But this is on the assumption that they will pray a valid prayer. Despite that, it's makruh tahriman to pray behind them. So normally it's sinful and you shouldn't do it. I did speak to a number of my teachers recently specific to funeral prayer, Salatul Janazah, because Salatul Janazah, to my knowledge, hasn't been specifically mentioned. We have the general statement that praying behind a Shi'i is makruh tahrimi. It didn't specifically mention, to my knowledge. And some of them, at least, they responded saying they feel with the Janazah prayer, it is permissible because you don't really have another option. Janazah prayer in the Hanafi madhab is prayed once and you have no other option. For that reason, they felt it's allowed. However, even though the scholars I spoke to didn't raise what Sheikh Muhammad has just raised, it's valid because this is, they speak about this in the Hanafi madhab as well. There are certain things that religious leaders shouldn't do or cannot do, even though it may be permitted for other people, because it can lead to confusion and it can lead to misguidance. So yes, I think that should be considered even within the Hanafi madhab, that if this person is a religious scholar, unless it's clarifying for the masses that, okay, I'm only praying behind them because there's no other opportunity to pray this janazah, and it's not an iqrar, it's not affirming, asserting their misguidance. I'm doing it for this reason. The Shia are our Muslim brothers, however, we differ with them strongly regarding certain matters. We clarify for the masses and then go. But just to silently go, meaning don't say anything and go, it can lead to misguidance. That should be considered as well.
Jazakallah khair. I think that's all the questions. I think if we can just clarify this for the brother or sister, is talking about the things in question do not refer to religious books or material. It's to refer to things like newspapers. So if, newspaper have names of prophets or something, can we just put that into the recycling bin, or do we need to take that part out?
My answer won't change for that.
Okay.
Yeah, similar, Sayyidi, similar to what I mentioned before.
No problem at all. Okay, I think that's all we have time for this month. Inshallah, do join us next month for our live Q&A. If you have any more questions, you can go onto our website, www.islammonsters.co.uk. We are, inshallah, planning on doing another Umrah trip. I thought I'd just quickly mention that with the Shaykh, Sheikh Jamili and Sheikh Nooru-ddeen, inshallah, towards the end of the year. So if you are interested in that, please do go on the website and register your interest. Until next month, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.